What's up, Super Progressive? We're here with another in-person interview, and it's been a while, but we have a super, super special guest today. I am so stoked because today we have a progressive house legend. Today joining us is Saeed Younan. Thank you so much for coming, bro. So stoked on this. All the listeners and followers of Super Progressive, they were like, let's go. They're so stoked. How are you doing, bro?
I'm doing amazing. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. And I've been seeing the reviews and everything. It's crazy. It's wild.
Dude, just thank you for coming across town. You know, we're doing this I drove down from the Jersey Shore to Washington, D.C. We built the studio out in my sister's apartment, and thanks for making your way here. Super chill of you.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
So how long, I guess we'll start with, this is like your home turf. How long have you been in Washington, D.C. for?
I've lived in this area since we came here from Iraq, or actually back in 81, 82, something like that. So been here since then. But I've also hopped around, tried to live in LA for a little bit, but always came back here for some reason. Yeah,
that's cool. And I read for all of our listeners, there was an awesome gray area interview that just came out with you, super informative. And I was really excited that came out just before this interview because I got a great background. And so you were moving around a lot as a child.
Yes.
In Iraq. I saw you spend some time in the UK. Musically speaking, did you pick up anything, or what did you pick up, living in Iraq and then living in the UK and then coming here that kind of shows itself in the music that you make?
Mainly, being born in Iraq is like any child, pretty much you're in the middle of a war kind of a scene, but I'm always trying to tune in the radio and try to find European stations, between finding disco music on the radio, being around family that play a lot of percussions like the dumbag and stuff. Middle Eastern music has a lot of percussions in it. Between that, the American music, then moving to London to coming to the US and whatnot. I also, was listening to punk music as well. So it was a mixture of a mold of everything. Where I am.
It's so cool. And speaking specifically of dance music and underground music, I also love punk music, and I'm sure there's kind of the same radio experience, but this music isn't necessarily making its way to you on mainstream radio. Are you listening to pirate radio stations, or how are you even accessing this music?
It's just a little boombox we had, and I'm just constantly tuning. It's just trying to find something that's not fuzzy. I always had a cassette tape in the tape deck, so as soon as I can pick up a station that actually sounds great, just hit the record button, because I know I'm probably gonna lose it, so I just want to refer back to the music. So it was always random. I also was picking up Indian stations, Afghani, all kind of stuff. So I was just always tuning in, and whatever sounds kind of interesting to me, I'm always hitting the record button and then listen back to it. But it was really fuzzy stuff.
Do you remember one of those tracks that you may have heard on the radio? And I know this is way back, but that you clicked record and it left a lasting impact on, or maybe was a gateway for you into being oh, I actually really like this music, and I'm gonna search this music out more.
Yeah. It's funny. I think for some reason ABBA was always on the radio. I can't remember what song it was, but it was always ABBA. And the funny thing is, I used to mimic how the DJs, the DJs were in this radio and whatnot, and kind of talking, introducing the songs and stuff like that. And I used to do that. Used to do a recording with my sister. So next song, blah, and I have my sisters say something like a shout out, whatever. So I used to record mixtapes of being a live DJ on the radio as well.
Dude, we're gonna have you join the live stream one day. That's what I feel like I've been doing on my page, is just doing my best to pretend to be a radio DJ and try and keep everyone entertained while listening to awesome music. That's really funny, bro.
That's fine.
It's also funny because you got ABBA was one of those artists, and you can't even go to a music festival today without hearing someone's rendition of ABBA. Really timeless. That's cool, bro.
For sure.
So, one of the things that the followers, they all submitted these awesome questions. And one of the biggest questions was about your time in Washington, D.C. when you make it over here. And, you know, there was like a scene here. And going back and learning, there is a scene here currently too, but going back and learning, you know, I made a video about BT's Ema. And it was about how he was almost like a struggling artist, you know, trying to make it work in LA, but he came back to Washington, D.C., and it just so happened that he was producing music, you know, even before he went to Los Angeles, but also he came back with Deep Dish. And I was like, I'm realizing, and I'm curious, what was the scene like when you got here? And was it something you were seeking out, or did you kind of like stumble into it?
I would say pretty much stumble into it. You know, I got into music in high school, like junior, senior year. And, you know, dance music probably more like in my senior year. We used to go to clubs here in DC. One was called Chicago's. The other one was called, what was it called? I think it was called Anastasia or something. There was a couple clubs. So that was the first time I got introduced to house music. So the scene in DC was very small. So like once you get introduced to house music, there was like maybe 2 record stores here. You know, you had Music Now and 12-inch. Actually, 12-inch was before Music Now. And 12-inches actually used to be here right around on DuPont Circle. And so that was like a place where all the DJs, we all pretty much met each other. Like I've always, you know, ran into Ali, Sharam, you know, Mia Palash and everything. We all shot to the same record store. It was only the record store we can get at. So that was probably the place where we kind of all congregated and met. Then we all saw each other at the clubs at night. Like most of the time, you go to a club, walk out, and they won't be promoters out there. It was the DJs giving out the flyers to the people, promoting their own events. So we'll be standing out there with a stack of flyers at 3 a.m. as people leave the club. Like either me, Palash, or like Ali, Sharam. We all did it. So it was a small scene, so we kind of all pretty much knew each other and you know, did the same thing.
When you were in high school, like senior year, getting into this, what year was this? And were Ali and Sharam already kind of established at that time, or were they also still in their early days coming up? Like, what year is this around?
So I graduated in 1991. So like, let's say, yeah, like 89, 90 is when I started getting into music. I think we didn't go to the same school. None of us did, but I think we're all in this about the same. I think maybe they graduated in 1990 or 1989. I can't remember. So with them, they pretty much went full force into, you know, making music, starting their label, Deep Dish, and doing all that stuff. And for me and Palash, which was funny, we end up being in college, and we end up being in the same college. So we both went to VCU, not knowing that we're both going to go to VCU. And so we did the college route because my parents were like, look, you can do this music thing, but you got to get your 4-year degree. You got to do college and have some, like a, you know, a safety net. So basically, I did that, and while I was doing that, Ali and Sharon were pretty much blown up. Like, oh my God, I was like, this could be me, and I'm sitting there, you know, studying in school, but you know, you have to do what the parents say. So that's why they pretty much kind of took off like crazy. Then we're like behind, kind of treading along, you know.
No, that's cool though. So when you're, it's so interesting. Like when you were going to college, you had gone to the clubs, you're into the music, but did you dream of like, were you focused on also producing music at that point? Was like a music career one of your ambitions at that point?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, we got a studio together. I was actually, one of my first tracks that I ever did was with Rob Garza, who's now part of Thievery Corporation. Oh, wow. And we actually started a label together called Juju Thievery Corporation. So that was like a small label. I think maybe 1 or 2 releases on it. So that was like in 1993, I think. And so I've always wanted to make music. As soon as I left high school, I was like, okay, I want to start producing. I started getting gears, you know, building a small studio in my parents' basement, just, you know, working on tracks and going on, you know, going to school and on the weekends and holidays come home and try to work on music in my parents' basement. So I was trying to balance the two, but I knew there was something there. You know, I was collecting records. I was actively DJing in college. I was playing all the like school parties. I was doing club parties as well, you know, just trying to pay off my tuitions and whatnot. And this is the only job I had between going to school and, you know, being home is I just picked up a lot of club gigs and making some, you know, ends meet and making music as well.
Totally. And so from those first days as a clubber, like your senior year of high school in DC, to DJing in college, what were the things about club culture basically that you were like, oh shit, this is for me, like this is my area, this is my environment? What was like some of the initial things that pulled you in?
I just, something I gravitated toward the music. I think one of it being probably hip house. Since, you know, back in the 88, 89, hip hop was massive. I liked hip hop, but I really liked dance music. And when I heard the two kind of together, hearing hip house for the first time, like Mr. Lee and Doug Lazy and those guys, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing, because now I can actually cater, because I was also doing parties and playing some hip hop because you had to in order to DJ, and I really wanted just to DJ, so I had to kind of cater to the crowd. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to introduce hip house to these people, because obviously it's a hip hop crowd, and slowly people were gravitating towards it. So I was like, then I'm, you know, slowly switched out of hip hop and just playing more hip house and a little bit of trance, adding that stuff to, you know, dance parties and college parties and whatnot. But that's pretty much what kind of pulled me into it.
So cool. So you're clubbing with Palash in Washington, D.C. in high school. You guys don't know that you're going to end up going to college together. Are you guys DJing together in college and making music together, or is this just kind of like a loose collaboration where you're doing your own thing with him while he's doing his own thing at the beginning?
Yeah, well, we've known each other in DC. You know, we're playing at the same clubs. He actually had a club as well called Chambers of Sound, which I played at a few times. When we got to college, I started throwing my own parties, and I was always having him play along. So like, yo, let's play here. Then we went to UVA as well. We were doing parties at Virginia Tech, UVA. This is before we even launched a label and whatnot. So we're doing some college parties. We're playing our own college parties. We're, you know, playing together, and from there we just started like really loving the music and just trying to discover new stuff, what to do, and things like that. And we started falling in love with like progressive house, but we always had that thing about tribal. Like we, you know, even when we were playing house music, it was very percussive heavy, very tribally. Back then it would be like, you know, Danny Tenaglia, Junior Vasquez, David Morales. It was all just like that, you know, percussion stuff. So we loved that. We totally love that, but we want to incorporate what's happening in Europe with that as well. So we're like, you know, let's try to mash both of these together and see what we come up with, and, you know, bring the U.S. tribal with the European progressive and create our own kind of thing. And it was all just purely out of fun. You know, let's see what we can do. And, you know, that's pretty much what we try to do. I mean, I don't know how far you want to go into it, but that's pretty much what it all kind of came together. And we're like, look, we can't find this music. We're the only ones that we knew we were creating it. Why don't we start a label to release what we're doing, because we can't find that stuff. And that's pretty much how Addictive Records came about. And that was like sick. 1998.
Dude, that's so cool. And so I have like a million questions about this specific era. But, okay, so you say there's like two things that you're influenced by. You just named 3 New York-based artists. We're only 4 hours from New York. Are you going up to New York to listen to these DJs in their home environment in New York City?
Yeah, I mean, we were, you know, going up to hear Junior Vasquez at Palladium, Danny Tenaglia at Twilo or Tunnel. But yeah, like every weekend, every chance we get, we just, you know, hop on the bus and take it up. And we'll wait till the club ends and just hop on the bus back. I mean, I was working at a grocery store, so I'll clock out, go do the party, then clock back in and actually go back to work. But it was purely out of just the energy and the passion. Like, I knew nothing else. It was just like, it's all about the music, and I couldn't wait to get off that shift just to get back in the studio and remember what Danny played or Junior or whatever, just to try to mimic that stuff in the studio. So that to me was just like pure, just, I don't know how to describe it. It was just like otherworldly, you know, vibe.
I totally understand what you're saying. I graduate college, right? And I get my dream job as a Sports Center producer at ESPN, right? 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. is the shift. My off days are Tuesday and Wednesday. But on Saturdays, I work the morning shift for college football, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. I used to get on the 8 p.m. train to go into New York City, go to the clubs, go just be in this music, and like you, would come back just in time, get back to Connecticut by 9 a.m., and shift starts at 11. And I'm going in there with, like, I haven't slept. I'm going in there with, like, a skip in my step. Like, I'm just stoked. And it, like, didn't necessarily impact my work because I was just, like, on all fronts doing what I love. But I know that feeling of, like, you know, like when I go clubbing in Brooklyn and I'm on the same train after raving as someone who is going into work, I'm just looking at him. I'm like, we're living in different worlds, bro. It's one of my favorite feelings ever. I'm like, you're doing your thing, I'm doing my thing. We're on this same train together going into Manhattan. Yeah. It's cool.
It is the same like with Greyhound. Like I'll hop on back. I mean, you're tired, whatever, but then you're also like trying to do mental notes of what you heard Danny do that night, or what acapella he used, or where did that, you know, sound come from, and can I try to do that in the studio? It's, you know, we didn't have phones where we can actually, you know, do hit record and be like, okay, I want to record this so I can remember what I'm going to do in the studio. It was all mental notes, and you know, you just had to get back and remember all that and just download it and just like, okay, I know what happened. I'm going to try to mimic this. It's almost using what you heard that night as a guide track, what producers nowadays call a guide track. Wow. But the guide track is all up here. It's just like, okay, I want to remember this particular percussion that he used. How did he layer this? Can I mimic that exact transition in a set that I heard Danny do or somebody, and mimic that into a track that we can produce and whatnot? So.
What I love about that is the room for creativity and originality in your productions, because for me personally, if I listen, say I record a song at a set, at a club, right? If I want to make a song that sounds like that, and I have the full sound, right, the full song in its entirety right in front of me, it's hard to make something that doesn't sound exactly like that. But if you're in the club and you have this mental note of, say, a percussion breakdown that you picked up on, or a melody that you picked up on, but there's only like bits of it in your head, you're like, okay, I have this little thing, let me see what I can do with it, like entirely. That sounds really cool to me.
Yeah, and that's all you really had back then. It's just like to make that mental note, and you try to make it as best as possible. And you know, and the gear we had back then wasn't a lot of stuff. There wasn't much to work with. I mean, me and Palash, our studios were simple. They're basic. It's just, you know, we had the DAW. I think we were using Cubase back then, and we had a couple of, you know, outboards and a couple of DAT players to record what we're doing. Majority of the music was all sample based, so we sample off of records, all needle drop. We find something we like, we, you know, hit record on the DAW. So it was all like needle drop. Then you got to clean it up, you know, put the markers. It was so tedious compared to nowadays, you just, you know, drop and load or whatever. But it was a lot of fun, and I think making the music back then, when you're putting that much effort into it, it just seems more whole. It seems like there's like, I don't know, it just feels like you're presenting something that really represents you at the end of the day. Because even though it is a sample, we're not taking the sample as is. We'll chop it up, we'll reverse it, we'll cut it up, you know, do something with it. But at the end of the day, you know, the amount of work you put in it, it just feels like the presentation is so much more. It's so much like personal, you know, in a way. So that's what it felt like to us.
Amazing, amazing. And I want to go back to this balance of your sound, right? You have that tribal sound. Then you said you had that UK melodic progressive influence too. What artists over in Europe were also influencing you equally with those New York artists?
I would say Paul Oakenfold definitely was huge back then. Dave Seaman, Carl Cox. Those were like some of the guys Carl Cox and Sasha Digweed, we used to go see them at Twilo all the time as well. So they were very influential. It was wild to see those shows.
I got to ask, because I'm just mystified by Twilo. I ask all of the followers who have been there I collected like an oral history of Twilo. It ended up being like 18 minutes. And the person that asked me to make it, they're like, dude, we can't use this. We're looking for like a 30-second clip. I'm like, I'm sorry. These people just have stories on stories on stories. Why is it that, you know, what was it about Twilo? And I hear about the speaker system that would bang so hard without damaging your ears. I heard about the people that would go there, the sheer size of it. What made it so legendary, and why does it retain this legendary place in underground music today?
Well, okay, so Twilo had few stages that it went through that it's changed. When I first went to Twilo to hear Danny Tenaglia, the booth, I didn't even know where the booth was. I couldn't, like, where is the booth here? You didn't know anywhere. It was tucked up all the way up in the corner, like a little bird cave, like a not bird, like a
so
bird, like
old
a
school.
Nest. Yeah, it's like all you see is the DJ's head. You don't see nothing.
A silhouette of them, just like so hazy.
So it was all about the music. It was just about you getting lost in the music, not worrying about what the DJ, if they have their hands up in the air, if they're doing whatever. So that kind of just amazed me to have that. Then the second stage of Twilo, from what I remember, the booth went down closer to the dance floor, but it was closer to where the restrooms are. So it was just like the booth is there, then you go around the corner and there's the restroom. So, and that was like, you can go up and like even shake the DJ's hand, like, or give him a demo, whatever. It was simple, accessible. I think maybe that probably why they moved that stage from there, because it was super accessible to anybody just to throw or give whatever to the DJ. They moved it and it became a stage. And that was like the big stage. But the beauty of Twilo, all that shifting happened. Nothing ever changed about the sound, the dance floor. It all stayed the same, and it's like you said, it's one of the best sounding system back then that I've ever experienced in a club. It was just it's mind blowing.
How was it? So when you got in the queue outside and walk in, would you just walk in and the club was right there, or would you like go down steps, or do you remember, or what was it like?
What I remember is you walk in to a side room, and then you make a left and there's the big room.
So cool.
I think I don't want to call it a chill out room, but it was like a small side room where you can hang out. I believe there were couches or chairs, and then you go to the big room.
So cool.
And you just boom, it just like right in front of you, like, oh my God, it's amazing. It's like another world as well. And it's a melting pot. You've got gay, straight, everything, and everybody just dancing together. It's like, it was amazing.
So cool, bro. So cool. So you're a college student. You're DJing with Palash. You're working at a grocery store. What was the moment where you were like, what are you taking classes in, by the way?
I was studying mass communication, or basically marketing.
Nice. What was the moment where you made the definitive step in the music direction professionally? And was that a risk for you, or were things already happening where you were like, no, this is going to really work out for the best? Or how were you feeling, and what was going on in your head when you were like, I'm a musician?
Okay, so this is a funny story too. So when I started really like figuring out like if this is the route to go, I was working for America Online, AOL it was called back then. So I was basically working for this company. I was doing I think working for the telemarketing department, just like doing phone stuff or whatever. At the same time, me and Palash, this is when we decided to launch Addictive Records. We didn't have an office, we didn't have anything, so basically he was working, I forgot the name of the company, a financial company he was working at. We were basically running the label out of AOL and the company he's working at, like all of our feedback sheets and stuff. We're mailing them all, like we'll stay after hours, after we're done with our shift, and we'll basically run a record label.
They have like the AOL masthead on it, on all the documents and stuff.
Exactly. So when we started the label, we both had a full-time job. We started all of a sudden getting gigs. We started getting gigs in Germany. We're getting gigs in Estonia, like all these crazy gigs by our first record. And we're already doing a couple of remixes. So we're already getting booked all over the world. We're playing. And
wait, what?
Yeah, it was great. So, and then, after I think couple of records were just pretty much over. So 1995, was it 98, 99? I can't remember the years. We started putting out more music on Addictive Records. Then we started going on the road more, so we started touring all over the world. we started having an issue because to fly back to the U.S., you have to lose about a day to come back. So most of these, sometimes we'll have a canceled flight, or we have to stay an extra day because the gig is on a Sunday. So we kept on calling sick at work.
You're still working while you're traveling the world DJing?
Yeah, because we didn't know that if this was going to be the thing, like, if we can escape it or not. So we're doing that. We're starting to call in sick. Palash's work, I think they started like noticing something's going on because this isn't normal. So my work gave me an ultimatum. Oh, and also a couple of people found the fax sheet coming back. And it's like from Germany and stuff for our record label because it's a feedback sheet. So people are writing feedback. I was like, what the hell is this stuff?
They're like, this shit is sick. They're like, what the hell?
And it's got like addictive records on it. And like, all right. So everybody kind of put the two into it. Like, look, you gotta, we find out what you're doing. You gotta pick it's either this or that. We understand what you're trying to do. It's your passion, but this is a job and blah blah. So, and I sat down with Palash. I'm like, look, man. We got to pick one or the other because this isn't going to fly. And I know your job is having an issue with you being on the road. So we talked about it, and I'm like, look, we're just going to have to go with it. We think this is the way to go. This is our passion. We're traveling all the time. It's like, this has got to work. So we pretty much both quit our jobs and told my parents. My parents had a huge fit because I'm leaving something that's like stable and, insured or whatever to something that's uncertain. But in our heart, we knew this was it. I mean, we're already on the road. We've got a couple of releases. We're on our way of, getting remix deals with some amazing labels. So we picked up a management. So it was all coming together. We didn't just like leave without having anything. We knew that if we put this together and hone it like it's the way it's supposed to, it could take off. So we had no choice. We're like, let's just leave the 9 to 5. We can always go back to a 9 to 5, but this is a once in a lifetime chance. If we don't do it now, we're not gonna have anything. So we both, I think 1998 is when we both quit our full-time jobs.
It's so lit.
It's crazy.
And what were the records that you were producing or the remixes that you were producing that were opening these doors for you?
Couple of them were like on Bedrock, Digweed Voices was one of them. Star 69 was signing a lot of our remixes. We did like Frankie Goes to Hollywood. And I think right there we picked up a Kylie Minogue remix. So we're doing Kylie Minogue stuff. And who else? Shoot. Yeah, Star 69, Bedrock. I'm drawing a blank, but a bunch of labels. And they were all like one after the other. So we're getting like remix. And we're getting some great commissions as well. Like we're getting a nice advance. We knew the advance can hold us down. We're putting all that money back into the record label. So by the remixes with our record label, us touring, we think we got this. So we had like all three parts that in order to be a successful artist and maintain it. So putting all that together, it actually just started working. It's molded itself to what it was.
Totally. And one of the followers was wondering, what were you feeling any pressure with the Bedrock Voices remix? And how did Bedrock make the connection with you? Like how'd that come to be?
We met John, I think, in Space in Ibiza, one of the parties, and we were just discussing music and stuff. He's like, would you like to do a remix for a label? Like, hell yeah, of course. So he's like, we have this track coming out, and then if you guys want to do it, we're like, yeah. So we got the parts from John. Back then, like I said before, it was a small circle. So you were always running to somebody, whether it's Miami, it's called Winter Music Conference back then. When we're going to Europe, playing Space, we're always like running into DJs, and as soon as they thought, Saeed Palash, yeah, do you want to do a remix? So we're always getting stuff like that. But pretty much that, with John Digweed and what else? We did some other stuff with, I think with Steve Lauder's label we did as well, with Harlem. He had a label called Harlem. That was a big track as well. So I think it was a Peter Bailey track.
It's so cool. And on the track that I did my first ever reaction to, it was Watching You, right?
Yes.
You shared an iconic story on Instagram in the comments about how those lyrics came to be, but I was wondering if you could kind of expand on that in this interview, because it was really awesome. It's almost like J.K. Rowling writing Harry Potter on napkins in cafes. Really cool how those lyrics came to be. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
I can't remember what club it was, but we were in a club, and I was hearing a track. I was actually with Palash too. We're hearing a track, and this is when I was trying to still think about hip house, like how to mash hip house, but kind of change it up a little bit. And this track came on, and these lyrics, you know, watching your lyrics just came on. It's just like, it was a rhyme like I had, and it was repeating, I'm watching you in the club, I see you. And it's like, okay, what rhymes with I see you, I feel you, you know, like that. I'm like, oh man, this might be cool. And while I'm doing that, that track had a similar beat to what we actually did watching you too. So it was like, dun, 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 like that. And I'm like, okay, this is dope. So I like, dude, I was like, and it's like, what? I was like, what's up? I was like, I gotta grab a napkin real quick. I'll tell you later before I forget. So I grabbed a napkin, borrowed a pen from the bartender, and just pretty much jotted down watching you on a piece of napkin. And, you know, went back in the studio, found some beat and stuff like that. But basically that's how it all came about. And I just hopped on the microphone and just pitched my voice
You hopped
down
on the microphone?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
sick.
So that's my voice on watching you. And I just basically dropped the pitch down and recorded watching you.
Dude, so cool. And so this question, it all kind of goes over my head, even though I'm starting to learn more and more about it. But the listeners and followers of Super Progression are dying to know, what kind of equipment were you recording with in your studio on some of these tracks?
So we had 3 studios back then. I had my studio, which was in my parents' basement. Palash had his studio, which was, I believe, in his parents' house. And then we met a guy named Jim Duvall, who also lives here, like in the Tysons area, Virginia, and he was a music engineer. So it worked out beautifully, because what I can do is I can work on a piece at my house, Palash can do a piece at his house, then we bring it to the engineer studio and put the final touches on it. And back then we were all using, I think we moved from from Cubase, we all started using Logic. So all 3 of us were on Logic. And just using a couple of like Yamaha synthesizers, couple of plugins, not too many plugins, mainly was outboards, rack mount stuff. But like I said, most of our stuff was very sample heavy. So since we had a lot of records and really great records, we did a lot of needle drop, a lot of sample loops from records. And it was a lot of it, analog. I mean, it was all like live on the fly. We drop a needle and just go to the board and, you know, turn up the volume and take the pieces that we want and put it in the DAW and work on it that way.
So cool. Did you, when you were throwing yours out like 1998, kind of like the first records, was this, in terms of the digital revolution in dance music, from the equipment to DJ to mixing on vinyl and stuff, did you experience both sides of that, or was it already moving towards digital by the time you were making music and DJing? So
just so to be clear, 1998 is when we launched Addictive Records.
Oh, Addictive Records.
But we were already making remixes before that.
Oh,
sick.
And
doing stuff on other labels. So we were already producing. But yeah, so the transition happened pretty much when we started the label. So I would say 1998 to about 2000, we started noticing our gears changing. We're more in the box, as they call it. So we're all plugins, and we're selling a lot of our boards, and we're like, oh, we can do this like as a plugin. Like a lot of the synths we had that was a board, like we can get it sounding just as amazing as a plugin. So we were using that, you know, I think we upgraded our studios. Like I got a vocal booth, so I put in a vocal booth so we can record live drumming or live vocalists and stuff like that. But yeah, the transition was pretty slow, but I mean, we were already there, because with Logic, things kept on improving. The plugins were getting better, the DAW was getting better. So we just like started going more in the box instead of doing a lot of outboards.
Really cool, really cool. Now, another thing massive at this time are mix compilations, the CD mix compilations, right?
Yes.
And can you kind of tell me how exciting it was to be included on some mix compilations like Danny Howell's New Breed or Anthony Papa Resolution? Like, how awesome was that?
I mean, that is how we used to pretty much reach new audience. Like, we didn't have social media, we didn't have Facebook or Instagram. The only way you can reach new audience is by being on somebody else's compilation, because most likely those people will try to look up, see who these people are. So our compilations was a way for us to be discovered by other people who don't necessarily who knew who we are. So being on those compilations was amazing, and it's it's great, especially a brand like Global Underground, which you knew it's gonna reach world. Like everybody has a global. I just like you were telling me earlier, I've got my own like little stack of Global Underground. I think every DJ of our age has a stack of Global Undergrounds, and but yeah, just to be on those compilations, man. Oh my God, it's unbelievable because the phone will start ringing. It's funny to say phone because it was not many emails, but there were some emails, so the phones will be ringing. Management will, start getting more pitches for us. Hey, we noticed these guys are on Global Underground. We want to have them do a remix? So we're getting other things out of it. Money may not be that great, but the things that follow through is just amazing. The remixes, the opportunity to be on other labels, to sign original tracks, to tour. Like we got a lot of actually gigs because of being on Global Underground as well. So it's a great way to kind of be discovered. Yeah, definitely. And then you guys eventually mix your own mix compilation, right? And it's like massive. And I want to get the name right. I don't have my notes in front of me. Is it Tide Edit 07? Yeah. What was that about? So Tide is edit spelled backward. Oh, no way. There you go. So, and I didn't know that until the label told us that, because we asked, what is Tide? Like, it's spelled backward. It's a Tide Edit. That's awesome. Yeah. So that is... it's a compilation we did. It's one of, I think, a couple of compilations that we released. I actually brought you a copy. Yeah. It was cool because they gave us the freedom to do what we wanted to do. So they're like, look, you can choose the tracks. We'll get it licensed. Pick what you want to do and how you want to mix it. And me and Palash decided, look, let's, since we both have our own studios like we always do, he'll mix a disc, I'll mix another disc, and, put our style and blend into it. And basically, that's how it came about. And they released Tide Edit, and they pretty much kind of went with all the tracks we wanted. And that's the beauty of, like, I think releasing music back then, is when you can pick some tracks. You didn't have a lot of restrictions from other labels telling you, you can use that, but you can't use this. We were able to clear everything, which was awesome. And there was a lot of tracks on Tide Edit that we actually played religiously at clubs, and we really wanted to be on the comp because it really represents who we are as DJs, and we want this comp to be as who we are as DJs, not producers or anything. We want people to know who we are as DJs, and it was all amazing because we cleared every track we wanted. That's awesome. Do you remember, so I'm obviously going to go back and listen to this compilation after this interview. Do you remember what tracks included in that compilation are that you said are some of those that were in all of your sets at that time? Oh my God. I had to go back and look at like crazy. Yeah. The thing about, and I know a lot of DJs from my era, we're very visual people, so I'll dig through a crate and I'll know the record by the artwork, but not necessarily know the title or the artist, but I'll know that artwork. So it was hard I didn't remember names a lot, but if I see the record, I know exactly what it sounds like and what track it is and what's the hook and what's the breakdown just by looking at the artwork. It's so sick, so sick. So another question I have. During this time, right, mix compilations, DJ mixes, making music, let's say over the course of the year, how are you balancing your schedule? How many are you DJing every weekend and then recording music during the week? Or are you spending a month in the studio straight, just banging out stuff and then going and DJing? How did it all work? Or was it all just chaotic? At some points it was chaotic. We had some kind of formula that worked. So when we were on the road, we never worked on music because we just didn't have the capability back then. So when we were on the road, it was basically being on the road. And a lot of times we try to bundle up the gigs. So if we're going to Europe, we'll do a month in Europe, and we'll we'll stay in hotels between gigs. We'll go to laundromats to wash our clothes, whatever. But we want to knock it all out. That way we can come back and spend a couple of months in the studio. So that's how we try to do it. The beauty of it all, like I said, we had an engineer, so he's the middleman. So we still, every time we're done being on the road, we would get back. All three of us meet at the engineer's house, at Jim's house, and we work on either whatever remixes, whatever timeline we had. A lot of the tracks, I remember some tracks we had where literally it was if it's not delivered by midnight that night, it's going to be scrapped or whatever. So we had to sit in the studio And oh no, I think midnight or something like that. We had to sit in the studio right at the last like couple minutes. We were rushed the DAT to a FedEx at Dulles Airport.
Oh my god!
Because it was the only one that was open till midnight, and we will mail it right stamped before midnight so they can get the DAT on time. So a lot of the remixes were just like hairy like that, man. We're like on studio just crunching along and like, yo, we gotta wrap this up. And one of us, either me, Jim, or Palash, will drive to FedEx and just drop it off right before FedEx closes at midnight to have that, stamp before midnight on it. So we had like crazy moments like that, but we had a crazy remix schedule, and the timeline they would give us was insane too. Like sometimes we'll get parts for a remix, they say we need it in 3 days. So, and we're like, damn, man, we had to, if we're touring on a gig, whatever, there was no way we can make it. So we'll have our engineers start on a foundation, say, look, build something. This is what we want to hear, and we'll come in and we'll just knock it out that way. So it was a really good working. It was a messy technique, but it worked. It was like between all three of us, we had something. We all knew what we wanted to do with a track and where we wanted to take an original and how to make it a remix and where it's going to go from there. I
have never gotten to this point of an interview with a DJ. Like, I didn't know that the engineer was such a core part of like a production duo, and that's cool. What was your engineer's name again?
Jim Duvall.
Jim Duvall. That's really cool.
He actually has a couple of tracks on Addictive Records.
Oh, no way!
Under the name Duvall, yeah.
Oh, he's under Duvall. I have to go check those out. That's so cool, bro. Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, but he was great. I mean, like I said, he was like the middleman, and he was really good with certain things, like when it comes to sound, finding the right soundscapes and things like that. So he was helping us put some of that stuff together as well.
So during those, like you're touring Europe and stuff, what if you can remember to what your like favorites are, or just like what left great impressions? What were the cities that you were traveling to where you were like, holy shit, the scene is sick, or these people are just so passionate, or this club is awesome? Do you have any memories of just some places that blew your mind away?
Yeah, the first gig, believe it or not, that we got overseas was in Estonia, which is a country I'd never heard of before.
Wow.
Just like all I knew was like it was separated from Russia and whatnot. It was Eastern Europe. That was a major culture shock for me because we get there, it's the first time I've been to like a Russia type of place. Everybody's way taller than I am. It was a crazy warehouse. It had different rooms. We were the main artists in one of the rooms. They had, I think, they had propane tanks with fire shooting out of them inside of a warehouse while our equipment was here and all the wires all around, like the gear. It was like very like sketchy, man. And we're like, what the hell? Me and Palash look at each other like it's crazy. But the people were amazing, man. Like the vibe, the energy, everybody dancing. I think we stayed there for like about 4 days, just the promoter's like, look, I can't pay you much, but at least experience the country. We're like, all right, cool. It was our first gig overseas. Like, let's just go for it. So that was pretty memorable. Because it being our first gig overseas. We did, I think, the closing at Space Ibiza a couple of times with Danny, with Carl Cox. We played the car park, which was outside. That was, and Sasha and Digweed. That was probably one of the most memorable gigs too, and being in Ibiza with those guys and being on the same bill with them.
I'll have to ask Danny about that. He was so stoked when I told him I was doing this interview. So I was like, bro, I can't come into work today. I'm interviewing. But yeah, no, that's awesome. It's so cool. So another question I have, and this is like a little bit more on the philosophical side, but I imagine you're getting known and your label's getting known around the world, right? For this tribal progressive sound. You love this sound, but as an artist, did you ever feel like cornered into this sound, or was that a thing for you? Or were you just like, dude, this is me. Like, I'm just expressing myself. This is what I like. It's all good.
Yeah. I think what we were doing was unique compared to what everybody was doing. From what I know, from what everybody told me, like we were pretty much me and Palash are the ones who coined the tribal progressive, that sound. Because when we started doing it, like I said, we couldn't find records. We couldn't find anybody else playing it, which is bringing that New York style tribal with the European style, progressive stuff. And we kind of brought that together. And that actually felt like it does represent me because, we just mentioned Danny Tenaglia earlier. It's like that's hearing him and hear what he was playing at Twilo. It's exactly the reason why a lot of the stuff I do today or I was doing, it's that tribal progressive sound that kind of mashed up together. I mean, I think it still represents me. I mean, till this day, the music I make still has percussions and tribal and heavy bass lines. It may not be as melodic, or it doesn't have the big synth and stuff like progressive does, but it still has my elements of tribal, and it has the percussions and whatnot. But yeah, I don't think I was pinned to it because of it. I think I loved it. I mean, every time we made a track, we're 100% in, man. We're like, oh, this is gonna be bomb, you know, like. But we also did like straight tribal stuff, like Salida, the Underground. It wasn't very proggy, but it was tribally, but it's got the deep boom, boom, like that. So we're always ourselves, and I know I was never pinned to doing something I didn't want to do.
That's awesome. I'm like in a major, in preparing for this interview, you saw the reaction. I'm in a major tribal progressive like phase right now. I just think it's awesome. I love how like just raw it sounds and just how much energy it gives me. Another group, and I'm not trying to say like they're your contemporaries or similar to you, but I also love John Creamer and Stephen K. And I think like they bring a lot of that same energy, that balance of tribal and progressive. It's really cool to listen to. And I'm just discovering them, so I'm like, holy shit.
Oh, wow. Yeah, those guys are money, man. I love both of them. We're actually still all friends. I was hanging out with John in Tulum or Playa del Carmen a couple of months ago.
Oh, so, awesome, bro.
Yeah. But yeah, their sound, they were, that was massive. That was massive. Definitely try to get with them.
Yeah, totally. I'll do my best. Should we take some questions from the followers?
Let's go for it.
Okay. One bro, UB6IB9. He's actually a really good bro. He DMs me all the time. He goes with, what was it like to work with Palash?
It was good. We had a really, really good working chemistry because he was very business savvy. He has a good business sense. That's why he was working for a finance company, I guess. And I was a bit more of the artistic. So running the label was great because I would listen to demos, make sure like the music is proper, more studio oriented. He'll come and be like, okay, we can deal with this financially, we can pay that, we can do that. So it worked out great because we weren't both artists and we weren't both about the money. It was a really good chemistry. It worked really well because we had that balance. So like I said earlier, we would do a lot of the production. Some of it he'll do in the studio at his house, sometimes I'll do it, and then we'll come together and hash out the track. Sometimes he'll work on an entire track, or I'll work on an entire track, and then we say, no, do this, change that. So the chemistry was really good.
That's awesome. Yeah. We already touched on Paul and Motion's question about how much pressure there was to remix Bedrock Voices. Huge remix. That was so awesome to learn about. George Canaris. This guy is my dude. I went on a family vacation to Athens. My ancestors are from Greece. Oh, nice. Like a small island called Lesbos, Eastern island in Greece. And so I went back to Athens with my family, but I knew there were some super progressive followers, and he had me over to listen to all of his old records and stuff. And it was just so cool to connect with someone that I never would have met over this music. And we're just instantly broing out over like having the best time. And it was cool. And he had a question for you. What is your favorite remix that you've done for other producers? Is there one that stands out that you love? Yeah,
he should. He probably knows G-Pal from.
He was talking to me all about G-Pal, Dusk. There
was another. She was G-Pal's girlfriend. I don't know if girlfriend or what, but she was also producing stuff. I draw a blank on her name, but.
And who is dude, it was so cool because like I know Sultan was also producing kind of with those artists too, and he had like a bunch of old Sultan tracks, and I was like, holy shit, this is so sick. Wow. But yeah, he was wondering about what a remix that stands out to you.
Man, there's so many. I would say, since it went to #1 on Billboard, I would have to say Salida, the Underground. And funny thing,
that's crazy. Yeah. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was #1 on Billboard. We didn't get much credit for it. I actually wrote a big thing about that because somebody oversight the contract and said that it's going to be a remix, but it was actually an original because there was never ever an original when we did our mix. But Star 69 put it out as a remix. I think they called the Addictive Remix or whatever. So we didn't get writer's credit on the music. Salida got obviously the vocals, which is, rightfully so. But that was our first #1 on Billboard. I think I was only #1 dance on Billboard.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was the easiest track. I sat in the studio and I found a couple of drum loops. I put it together. Palash suggested like some of the bass line sounds, and it was basically just a couple of drum loops, bass line, Salida's voice, and that's basically it. And it went to #1. Sometimes the simplest things, make the biggest hits. It's weird.
Dude, totally. That's so awesome. This is from Reuben. Reuben is from what is that? Boca. It's in Colombia.
Bogota?
Not Bogota.
Barranquilla?
Barranquilla, bro. Yeah. Reuben. Sorry, Reuben. You're my guy forever. I'm sorry I didn't remember it off the top of my head.
Barranquilla is hard to say.
He's from Barranquilla. And he actually did a mix for my channel, and I interviewed him, and he was running the scene in Barranquilla. So cool. Massive Hernan fan, massive Danny Tenaglia fan. And he was wondering, do you have a preference in progressive sound today? Are there producers that you're listening to today that you really, really enjoy?
That's a good question. In that style, you got, I like Solomon, like what he's doing, or it's not so prog, but it's got that, the same kind of feel as progressive that it had back then. God, I'm drawing a blank, but
No, yeah, I'm kind of putting you on the spot. I'm sorry.
I'm trying to think. I don't know if he still, but Uner was doing some amazing kind of stuff like that as well. He's a good artist to listen to, and he's very musically inclined, so he knows how to play music. He's one of them as well. So yeah, but I'll still listen to a lot of music and DJs who kind of have that kind of proggy sound.
Cool, bro. So Winter Fanatic 82. This guy's awesome. He's always sharing amazing music recommendations. I'm pretty sure he put you on my radar. Is there a producer that you look up to?
Yeah, we spoke about him a lot today. Danny Tenaglia was definitely the first person that pretty much when I heard him, I just knew this was the style of music I want to do. And I have a funny thing about a story about Danny as well. I don't know if I told you this already, but so if you remember earlier when we were talking, I said Danny was the first DJ I got to see at Twilo because I used to take the Greyhound there to check him out, and then took the Greyhound back. Me and Palash got a pitch to play Twilo, I think the week before it was going to close. And I had hit up Danny. I'm like, hey, I know you have to DJ. I think he was doing ARC or Vinyl, maybe it was called. I know you have to DJ that night. Just to let you know, we're playing at Twilo. It would mean a lot to me if you can stop by and say hi, whatever. He's like, I'm playing. I'll try, whatever. So me and Palash show up to Twilo. We do our set, and we're playing. Next thing I see is in the shadow, walking in the booth was Danny. And you don't understand, that made my day and made Palash, because to see the DJ that we first got to experience at Twilo, it came full circle for him to be in the booth to witness us. And I have a dope picture that's framed in my studio of me, Danny, and Palash.
No way, bro! That's so sick.
That to me was just amazing. That's when I was like, okay, this came full circle. The guy that I got to see, now he's here watching me play in the same venue. So
I love that story. That's awesome. And then, dude, that's it.
Yeah. Oh, I can't forget Carl too. Carl Cox.
Oh,
big
nice.
influence on us, and still till this day, so those two are my biggest guys.
Awesome. So, what are you up to today? Not today, as in your day today, but what's going on with your music? What's going on with your career? How are you spending your time professionally?
So we had to pretty much close the Addictive Records around 2004 because of the file sharing, Napster,
It's tough.
Yeah, it was super hard. By 2004, we're a fully operating label. We had an office, we had
employees,
we had employees. We were doing the whole thing. We were running payroll, everything. And then all of a sudden, Napster comes into play, and all the records we're sending out, they're coming back in boxes from distributors. Say, look, nobody's buying records. So our office was probably as big as the room here. Half of it was just boxes of returned records.
Of your own records,
of records of people we've signed, artists we've signed. So at 2004, this is when I think Palash was getting married, or he had just gotten married, and he figured that, look, he needs something more stable because he doesn't know where it's going. I mean, gigging was still good. We're still making money gigging, but, label and music was changing. It was very uncertain times around 2004. So we decided to, look, let's just, go our separate ways. It was nothing lasts forever, as they say. We had really great run, and so you go and take care of the family stuff, and I'm gonna, I wasn't married, I didn't have kids, and I was like, I'm gonna still do this because we had artists we signed on Addictive Records that we still have not put out their music, so they have a contract and everything to put out stuff, and we're getting records back, so there's no point of putting out their music. So I was like, and by then I already had my last name incorporated, just Younan, just for business purposes and whatnot. So I'm like, look, I'm gonna, use my last name, create a digital label, and put out some of these artists that we've already signed because their music needs to be out. I feel bad signing something and they, doesn't see the light of day. So it's like, I'm gonna just add the word music at the end of my name and use the corporation and start a digital label. And so I launched Younan Music back in 2004, putting out some music that we've already signed, some new artists. And this is like when Beatport just launched. They came to me in Denver with a PowerPoint presentation on paper of what they're gonna do with a record store. So I signed on. Like, if you go to Beatport, we're literally one of the first. I think if you put a label and the number that comes after it is when that label, I think, came part of Beatport, and we're like in the first hundreds.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I launched that. I launched Younan Music. I putting out music. Beatport, then signed a distribution deal with Universal. So we're across the globe, we're dealing directly with TrackSource. But yeah, I mean, the label's been running, digital label, Younan Music, since 2004. It'll be 20 years in 2 years.
Dude, let's go. That's sick.
So I never thought it'll get to this. It was just like using my last name, and it wasn't meant to be a record label, but it all worked out.
Nice.
Just like everything else.
Nice. And is there anything going on with the label right now? Are you guys releasing music?
Yeah, so we're focusing on compilations, which
Sick.
is what you like, but it's a digital compilation. So I'm getting the artists, putting out bundles of tracks, and I'm asking certain artists to mix it. So we'll have the compilation and a mix from an artist
Sick.
on the label. So we're putting out bundled tracks, releasing new, and the label is mainly the focus is on new artists. So I just want to focus on people who are making music in their bedroom like I started, and just give them a platform so they can sign to bigger labels if they want and whatnot.
It's so cool, bro. Well, I'm so stoked for you that you're still just in this shit. It's sick.
Part of me, man. I can't get rid of it even if I want to. I wouldn't know how.
Yeah, bro. Well, is there anything else that we missed or anything, or?
Nah, I mean, I just want to thank you and congratulate you on your show. It's amazing. I discovered you. Somebody shared a clip of you reviewing, watching you, and no, I loved it, man. It's like I was telling you earlier. It's like I've never watched somebody having such a thorough review, and you can see the genuine excitement when they're hearing something. It really gives you goosebumps, and I know this happens to all the artists that I know.
Yeah, thank you, bro. Well, it was awesome to meet you. I'm sure we'll do a catch up soon and do another interview, and just we're homies now. This is sick.
I would love to.
Yeah, this is great, bro. Yeah. We're out of here. Thank you very much. Another great interview. Peace.
Awesome.
Yeah, this was sick.
This is awesome. This is good.